So I am right now processing whitewood aster seeds, and there are a couple things I want to talk about with regard to these seeds, how to clean them, process them, get them from out of all this mess. I started when I collected them with this giant bag, and gradually have taken out the twigs and most of the flowers and debris. I still have a lot of debris in here, but I've worked it down to this. And why so much? Why do I want such a volume? Well, certain plants, and asters are one of them, require specialist pollinators because they're so tiny, so small. So a lot of times when you get a small aster like this, and you see all these flowers and you think, oh, this seed head, it's got a ton of seeds in it. When you pull the little puffies out and you see all these little seeds, well, they're not all viable. In fact, very often, very few of them are viable because we have a problem of not having enough pollinators, and especially not enough pollinators of the right specific kind for each plant. So when I go through these seeds, my goal is I want 20 packets of 10 seeds, 10 viable seeds each, to distribute to in our county for seed swaps for native plants. And this is one of the native plants in Maryland, Carroll County. So in trying to distribute and encourage the use of native plants, I'm looking for viable seeds to give to people. In order to get just one packet of 10 viable seeds, I would need this many flower heads probably in this area to get 10 viable seeds. That's a lot. And why? Because of the reduction in our number of pollinators. Now, at our house here, we don't use any pesticides. And so over the years, I've noticed a growth in the number and variety of pollinators we have. A large growth. In fact, last year we had, I identified close to 15 different types of bees. There's probably more here on our property now, but when we first moved here 20 years ago, I don't think I saw any. Maybe one. But over all these years of not using any pesticides and planting a large variety of different types of flowers, we've attracted many different types of pollinators. We have also attracted many different types of birds that feed on those pollinators, so it's a catch-22. But there is a balance in nature with all things. Okay, so I want to get some, right now, until I get more viable seeds. And in the wild, if you've got a good colony of these in the wild where there's no pesticides, you'll have a better chance of getting more viable seeds. But in a domestic area where neighbors and such use pesticides, you probably have a lower pollination rate and a lower percentage of viable seeds on your flowers. So you have to go through this much to get those 10 viable seeds. And I'm trying to get 200. So how do I get 200 viable seeds out of all of this? Well, the first thing I did was I separated as much as I could of the big twigs and stuff to get down to this chaff. If I was teaching little kids, I would get the little kids, you talk about a dandelion. You know, when the dandelion turns white and gets that puffy fluff, and you pinch off the white puffy fluff and you turn it upside down, you hold on to the fluff and you turn it upside down. At the tips, you see the little seeds. Well, these are the same thing, but they're 1/20th of the size. And I could do that, go through each minute flower by flower looking for 200 seeds. And that would take me definitely weeks, hopefully not years, but I don't have that kind of time in my life. I'm an old lady. So what else can you do? Once you get down to this rate, one of the things you do to separate seeds from chaff is what you call threshing, and that's beating stuff down to loosen the seeds. Well, this I've done some of that to release the seeds from the seed heads. But another thing I'm doing, and I'm doing this outside, is I'm crunching it. And as you see all this dust and fluff fly up, what that is the hairs that would normally in nature float away in the breeze and carry the seed with them. Well, by crunching like this, this has been drying for a long time, so a lot of those seeds are falling off of, separating from the hairs, and the hairs are flying away. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now, is outside instead of in my living room or kitchen. Release as much of this, crunch this so that this, these hairs can fly away. And once I get to a certain point with this, I can go to doing the pouring from bucket to bucket and letting the seed heads. I'm not doing that right now until I get those hairs released, because if I do the pouring through the air, which is called winnowing, if I do the winnowing now, those, I'll call them filaments, those hairs will carry the seeds away. And I don't want to lose the seeds. I want to keep the seeds. So right now I'm crunching to release, to separate the seeds and the hairs as much as I can. After I do that, I will go through 2 more processes, and one of them, the first one of them will be, I will take all of this, and instead of the crunching, another thing I do is I rub my hands like this. And that friction is another way of separating the hairs from the seeds. And so you'll notice a lot of this is floating away. And I am watching it very carefully to see if any seeds are floating away, because if I see some seeds floating away, I'll adjust my height or my pressure and whatnot. But so far, pretty good. And this is doing a good job of separating. So after I've crunched this, and I don't know what you call this, I do this with milkweed too, but that's not the best way to do milkweed. But anyway, after I've done this many times, not for very long, and it's just about ready. So at this point, I'm going to go get a strainer, a sort of fine mesh strainer, and I'm going to sift this. The seeds are pretty small, so a strainer would be just right. I'm going to sift this to get out the bigger chaff that's still in here, some of the twigs and whatnot, twigs and leaves that are still in here that the sifter will separate. And most of the small stuff, including many filaments, will fall through the sifter to the bottom. And once I get that, then I will do a process of winnowing, which is dropping things like this from one bucket to another. And here, as I'm doing it at that height, with that height, I can see that I am losing some seeds. And so I'm on a table. A lot of times people would say put a tarp down, so if some of your seeds do blow away, you can capture them. I'm not that particular, but I do know that I don't want whitewood asters growing out of the cracks in my patio, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. So after we've crushed this and reduced it quite a bit by just crumbling it, we've done the crumbling. One thing you can do is you can put it in a salad spinner, and this isn't 100%, this isn't going to be the final version, but you can put it through a salad spinner, and that will get some of the big stuff out. So I did that salad spinner. Wow. And it's pretty interesting. You'll see, so there's 2 things you'll see about the salad spinner. One of the things is you'll see on the sides, because plastic has a static, it's electrons, electromagnetic, anyway, it has a static. It will catch a lot of these hairs on the side. So you'll see those hairs on the side, and that has no seeds. It's all, there might be one tiny little seed in there, but it's mostly garbage. And you see at the bottom is the fine stuff that you get at the bottom. So what I'm going to do with that stuff at the bottom is I'm going to pour it into a bowl. And again, you get some of this fine, a lot of times that fine, no, you have to check it. There's one seed in there. But a lot of that fine stuff is garbage. But there are some seeds in there, so you kind of just got to be careful. Okay, so we put that fine stuff that we have here, and there's two ways you can process this fine stuff. One of them is winnowing, and that's where you, and because these are such tiny seeds, if I do it way up here, the tiny seeds will get carried away by the wind. So I have to do it down close because the seeds are tiny, they're really lightweight. If there's some wind, I just want to lose some of the little stuff. And I'm going to let that go, not too high. And today's wind isn't the greatest, and blah, blah, blah. So that's one thing that you can do. And there's still a lot of chaff. I'm going to show you how much chaff there is in here. There's a lot of chaff. And I'm going to pull out a seed to show you what we're looking for. Oh my gosh. When I show you the seed, I have to show you the seed in relative to something. Okay. There's a seed and there's my finger. Can you see that little dot? That's a viable seed. So that's what we're trying to get to. And I need 200 of those. That's what we're trying to get to. And that's going to be a little bit difficult. And so there's two ways to do it. One way, after you do the salad spinner, you can go to a finer mesh sifter. So I'm going to go to a finer mesh sifter now. And we have that. It's a finer mesh sifter. It's not going to get everything, but it'll get some things. So I sift that. And that will also help if there's any of the filaments or any of the seeds that haven't separated. This sifting too can also separate. I do this with basil, which is a totally different type of seed, but basil needs to crumble. And sometimes the sifter acts a little bit like a cheese grater in breaking the protective husks around the seeds off. So this, what I have left after I've sifted, I know all that is garbage. That's chaff, leaves, twigs, garbage. So I'm going to pour that garbage into my compost. And yet I still have a lot of, that is not seeds. Maybe 1/20th of that, maybe if I'm lucky, is seeds. Out of all of this, maybe this much. If I'm lucky, maybe this much is seeds. So I need to get down more. And there's a couple ways to get down further. I don't have a finer sifter with me right here, right now, but one thing I could do is go through a couple more stages of sifting. One of the stages would be to get out everything that's bigger than the seed. And so I'd go through a couple more, but with a finer gauge of mesh. Then after I went through ones that were bigger than the seed, I'd also sift it for ones that are smaller. I'd take a smaller mesh than the seed. And by sifting, a lot of people don't think about that, but by sifting it through a mesh that's smaller than the seed, you also eliminate, there's a lot of other things, foreign objects, dirt that you don't want. Okay, so do that. And then let's pretend that we went through all those stages of sifting. The next thing that you could do is, and this is what they would do with machinery, but we don't have machinery, is, we're doing this by hand, is a vibration and gravity. So what I do instead of the machinery is I have a cookie sheet or some long, it could be a cookie sheet. The other thing that I use that I like is, when you buy a family pack of chicken breasts, that styrofoam that's underneath it, that styrofoam also has the static cling feature, which is sometimes helpful when you're separating seeds. But let's say I have this cookie sheet. I use this cookie sheet too. And what I do is I tap it, and the things that are heavier will separate and drift to the bottom, while things that are lighter will stay up. And so and you're still, because we haven't done all that fine meshing, I'm not having a great difference to see, because I should sift this a lot more. But this is another way, you know, the seeds that are heavier will fall to the bottom, will vibrate to the bottom faster than the lighter stuff, which is either non-viable seeds or filaments or just grit. You know, the more viable seeds will be heavier and they will fall. The non-viable seeds, the shells, the whatnot, the viable stuff will go to the bottom. The less viable stuff will go to the top because it's a gravity. So this stuff here, you know, just glancing through it, I know all this stuff here is junk. So I've pretty much cut that down by 2/3. That's a little tedious, but I haven't sifted it very well. I haven't gone through those other 2 stages of sifting. If I had sifted it, this would be reduced quite a bit. But since it's not sifted, I can still do this vibration. Just keep doing it several times, and that will gradually make a difference. But this really does need sifted. But the vibration will make a difference. And I'm just going to look right here. Like right here, I see quite a few viable seeds in, yeah, quite a few viable seeds. I'll have to take a better look with a microscope or a magnifier, not a microscope, but I'll need to take a better look with a microscope just to get an estimate of how many, because if it's a 50-50, then that means I'll put 20 seeds to a packet in order to get 10 viable ones. But that's pretty good, actually. I probably have right there 30 or 40 seeds in this one little bit. Well, yeah, not 40, maybe 30. So that's not bad. That's it. Yeah, and so I'll take a little pinch just to show you up close. There's still a lot of chaff in this, and that would, you know, probably mean some need for repeated winnowing, but it's more than 50% seed. So we went from this much to get maybe 5 or 10 seeds to this much to get 10 seeds. Big difference. And it didn't take that long. And one other comment is these seeds are processed very similar. Lettuce seed is exactly like the way it looks, the way it's formed and shaped. Lettuce seeds are exactly like iris seeds. So the processing for them, if you're an individual and you're just pinching for your own garden, you just need, you know, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 seeds for yourself, that's fine. But if you're trying to save 200 seeds for your community to take to a seed swap or to share at your church, then you'll want to do something like this, which will save a lot more time and not strain your eyes. Thanks.